empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, put 8 point beat, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. We beat Notre Dame edition. We had a fantastic night in the Horseshoe. I was at the game. It was one of the craziest and loudest environments I've heard. It was like '05 Texas-esque. So shout out to Buckeye Nation for being loud. There's electricity. You know, as big of an A-list crowd as we've had with LeBron and Jason Tatum, and about 50 recruits. It was a big time atmosphere. Had a blast. I saw a ton of NFL kids. It was kind of nice that the game was on an NFL open week. So, Chase Young's in the house, Ezekiel, Joe Burrow. It was a star-studded night. It was a blast. Shout out Buckeye Nation. It was crazy. That being said, as always, we are thankful for you guys. Thank you so much. Our channel is growing. We just passed the most subscribers ever on our YouTube channel. Keep it coming. We appreciate you guys. Like the content. I want to know, who was your MVP of the game last night? Write that in the comments below. Obviously, Tommy Eichenberg, Mike Hall, Mayan Williams. There were some big-time candidates. The O-line. I was real proud of those guys. So with that being said, I'm going to bring in my compadres, Bill the Bank Greene and Nevadabuck. Nevada, I'm going to start with you. Initial reactions after watching that game. The Jim Knowles defense, the front, the offensive line. What were your initial thoughts, and who was your MVP?
Well, I mean, my initial thoughts was that I've never seen quite a dramatic transformation on one side of the ball as I saw with the Ohio State defense. Ohio State last year was a mess with a lot of the same players. They've kind of transformed into a unit that you could tell was playing with a lot of cohesion, with a lot of aggression. They were not out of position very often at all. They didn't miss a lot of tackles. I just thought it was a very smart game plan by Knowles. I love the fact that he was able to make adjustments and hold Notre Dame scoreless the last 42 minutes of the game, 72 yards the second half. I mean, it just that was really just my overall impression of everything that was going on. Was all about the defense. I think the offense was certainly a mixed bag, but the defense was an A+ as far as I was concerned. And with that in mind, I got my co-MVPs of Tommy Eichenberg and Mike Hall. Tommy was my pick before the game. He's certainly my pick after the game. He played like an All-American last night, and Michael Hall, I can't say enough good things about him. He just completely dominated the interior line, and that's what we needed to stop that Notre Dame running game, that Notre Dame RPO game, and he did it all. Started early, finished late, and was just a great all-around performance.
Bank, I know that you've loved Tommy Eichenberg since high school. It wasn't the same guy last year. He played like an All-American this past year. I think that you had one of the funniest things I've ever read when you said that Ryan Day played a tremendous tribute to Jim Tressel by punting from our own 43-yard line. I thought that was fantastic. But who are your MVPs, and what did you think of the game?
Yeah, Tommy Eichenberg was the best player on the field, in my opinion. But I like Latham Ransom. I didn't think, he was beat up last year a lot, and I just didn't think he was very good last year. And man, he was really good last night. Now, the Notre Dame quarterback is not very good. They don't have a lot of weapons. It was a really easy team, I think, to adjust to and prepare for. And, I think things will get tougher, maybe not, because Wisconsin, Iowa, Penn State, Michigan State, they all play the same way. They don't have quarterbacks. They can't really throw it. I'd almost like to see him play Purdue this year just to see somebody throw 50 times on him and spread them out. That's not going to happen, so you're probably going to go into the playoffs without a lot of experience against, a big-time passing team. But, they did everything they needed to do last night defensively. The Notre Dame quarterback started out 8 for 8. He finished 2 of his last 10. Totally shut down the running game. So defensively, man, there's just nothing to complain about there. Offensively, I love the way they ran the ball. I love the offensive line. I'm glad they scrapped the 4-tackle look where you have to throw on 3rd and 2 and 4th and 2. I was kind of surprised that the wide receivers couldn't get separation. Notre Dame had some young corners playing out there, and it was really tough to push the ball downfield. I mean, the guys didn't get a lot of separation. CJ was throwing guys open because they really weren't open. So, but I think that a lot of that is Jackson Smith and Jigma not playing. He's the number one. So all in all, week one, man, you got to win. It doesn't matter if it's horrible. You got to win. We saw that last year, with Oregon, where you get that early loss, and man, it just kills the rest of your momentum. It puts you in such a tough spot. So you got to win. All the coaches say that you have the most improvement between week one and week two. That's why I almost hate those power games in week one. Yeah, I'd rather see Akron or Arkansas State, but props to Ohio State. They did what they had to do. You had to win that game. So they did it. Love Jim Knowles, Justin Fry. I think the changes were made Ohio State better.
Yeah, I think that Jim Knowles just did a masterful job defensively of just mixing up fronts, blitzes. They ran the jack. By the second drive, they were running the 3-down jack look where Jack Sawyer was just kind of walking around picking his holes. Really, I love him in that role. I think he's fantastic at it. Basically plays like a middle linebacker between the Mike and Will linebacker, which are Tommy and Steele, and he played well. Mike's one big sack that he had towards the end of the game, it was a stunt with him and Jack. They did a TE stunt, and the line didn't handle it well. And the thing about Mike Hall is that he moves like a really athletic defensive end, but he's in an Ed Oliver, Aaron Donald kind of body. So he's not like Jordan Davis from Georgia. He's not one of those kind of guys, but he is a quick, slippery dude that guys can't keep their mitts on, and it's tough. So, Bank, you said that the old saying is the most improvements from weeks 1 to weeks 2. What does Ohio State need to get better at? And it's going to be tough because you're going to be playing a vastly inferior opponent this week. But what do they need to improve on going forward?
Yeah, they got to get that passing game cranked up. I mean, that's Ryan Day's MO. That's what he wants to be, and it's what they should be. With all the receivers, Hartline's bringing in, you got to get Jackson Smith and Jigba healthy. And I think not so much against the team you're playing this week, but in practice this week, I think they've really got to get back to creating some separation with those wideouts, pushing the ball down the field. I was surprised they didn't dump the ball off, Trey Henderson. I kind of thought we might see a little Joe Royer last night, in that receiving tight end role. So there's things they can work on, obviously, but all in all, you're sitting here the morning after, and you're 1-0 after playing the top 5 team. You're just thrilled with that.
Yeah, and you get to take a nice breath over the next couple of weeks. I think Toledo. I don't think that they're going to be. A challenge, but they're one of the best teams in the MAC easily. Easily.
No
so you can't sleep on that. I was on the staff in 2011 when Matt Campbell had a chance to beat us. And it was he was about an inch away from. If Johnny Simon doesn't get a sack, then we don't win that game. So I don't sleep on the Rockets ever. Nevada, what do you think that Ohio State needs to improve upon going forward?
Well, obviously there's a lot to talk about. You've got commitment to the running game. You've got timing and all the things that Bank said about the passing game. But I think in the next couple of weeks, it's really about seeing some of the younger guys, getting them out there on the field, seeing what they can do, kind of acclimating them to big time college football, and seeing what kind of depth you have. Do we have legitimate depth, or do we have just kind of depth on the depth chart depth? And I think we'll find out a little bit about that this next couple of weeks, because in these games, you're going to be able to do whatever you want. You're going to be able to run it if you want it. You're going to be able to pass it if you want it. You're going to be able to blitz if you want it. So I think it's just going to be about working on perfecting the scheme. Knowles talked about how last night was maybe only 50% or less of what they've been working on, and they're certainly not a finished product on defense, and they've got a lot more wrinkles to kind of unveil. So I'm sure they'll be laying those out as well. But the next 2 weeks, also keeping my fingers crossed for no injuries, knock on wood, and hopefully Ohio State just tightens things up a little bit before they start the Big Ten run in earnest.
Nevada, if Jackson Smith and Jigba has a serious concussion or something of the like, do you hold him this week versus Arkansas State?
Absolutely, yeah. I would. You've got to be prepared. The way the season's set up now, it's obviously everything's heavily weighted towards the end. You've got past this one game, and now everything's heavily weighted towards the end. So it's going to be about gearing him up, getting him ready for that. So There's no reason to rush him back. Whether it be something with his knee, not something with his groin, something with his with a concussion issue, whatever it is. I think you sit him until he's 100%, and then kind of ease him back into the fray because there's just no reason to rush that.
Yeah, I agree. Bank, who on the schedule going forward, prior to the Big Ten championship and the playoffs? Because obviously, we're going to see Georgia, we're going to see Bama down there. Are there any teams on the schedule that make you nervous?
No, I think there's a lot of like hidden gems on that schedule that can maybe cause some issues for you. Wisconsin's never easy to play. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't seem to beat Ohio State, but they're not fun to play. Iowa, maybe, I don't know. Iowa, found a way to get those two safeties yesterday and get the win. That was clutch. Penn State always plays Ohio State hard. Michigan State, I wasn't real impressed with. And then there's Michigan, and I know it's like, it's in Ohio and there's revenge and all that. But, that team might be pretty good by the end of the year. So there are some, every game they're going to be favored by double digits, by 2 touchdowns. But yet they were favored by 2 touchdowns over Oregon last year and probably over Michigan. And, it's hard to go undefeated. And there are some games here that I think can be close games in the fourth quarter. And then a team that's used to blowing everybody out, you get under the pressure a little bit, under the gun a little bit, you never know what could happen. But realistically, those are the teams that maybe could challenge Ohio State.
Got it. Nevada, what is there anything you're nervous about going forward? I mean, I honestly, I'm really nervous about, as weird as it is to say, like it looks like we could be thin at wide receiver, which, I mean, I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but Jackson's he potentially could get held this week. I think Julian Fleming is, hanging by a thread health wise. Cam Babb, God bless his heart. I don't know. So then you're down to, if JSN has got a significant concussion, you got Jaden Emeka, who I thought looked fantastic last night, and Marvin Harrison is your top 3. Then you're getting down into the weeds. You got Xavier Johnson obviously had the huge play. You're getting down to some young guys, but anything make you nervous going forward in Nevada? Because I mean, the wide receiver depth is surprisingly something that I'm not going to say that I'm like going to lose sleep over, but it's you lose if Marvin gets nicked up, man. You are kind of down to the nitty gritty there. But what about you, Nevada?
Well, I think stuff like that could be an unintentional blessing, and it could force Ohio State to do some things a little bit differently that I think it would make their offense just that much more, deadly and difficult to play against. And one of those things is swing passes to the running backs. I thought that was there all night last night. I think it's a unique way to get the ball to Trey Henderson in space, to Mayan Williams. They can both catch it. Is that evidenced by Mayan's huge third down catch, which I'm still not 100% convinced he was in bounds on. But getting the ball out to your running backs, they threw the ball to the tight end. I think he had 3 or 4 catches last night, which for Ohio State tight end, that's a virtuoso performance. So, maybe being a little thinner at wide receiver will force Ohio State to look a little, some other places on the passing tree, and I think that might benefit them in the long run.
I love that. Bank, who do you think in the coming weeks we'll start to see more of on Ohio State's team? I was stunned that Joe Royer didn't play a single snap. That was kind of surprising to me. Who else do you think is going to see an uptick in the snap count? I thought the D-line rotation was okay. I'd like to see more Jack Sawyer and less of some of the other guys. Jack, JT, and Zach should get 98% of the snaps to me. I know you can't wear them down, but who do you think we're going to see more of going forward? Because, we're going to empty the bench this week, and hopefully some of these guys will start to get some run and show out a little bit. But who do we need to see?
Well, the big thing to me is the deal with Josh Proctor and Lathan Ransom. I mean, I didn't expect to see that last night, but Lathan Ransom was tremendous, so he's going to push to be that third safety or first safety or however you want to number him. Hickman and McAllister are definitely going to be out there. And then, what was the deal, with Josh Proctor? Was he hurt? Did they bench him? I don't know. I haven't heard anything. So that was kind of weird, that he started the game and he was gone after 4 or 5 plays. and never returned again. So that's something I want to look at. The thing with Jack Sawyer is, I look at the stats. I thought he played great last night. And, you said you thought he was like a difference maker. He was a
Yeah.
disruptor. When you look at
Hmm.
the stat sheet, he had like 0 tackles, 0 sacks, and like 0 anything. But that was not a 0 game out of him. I
Hmm.
thought Jack was great too. And I look at that stat sheet and I'm like, this has to be wrong. So that's where,
Yeah.
sometimes stats don't always tell the story. Because I thought Jack disrupted a lot of things Notre Dame wanted to do last night. And maybe he let others make plays because they were, I don't know. I was just shocked to look at that stat sheet and see all zeros for him. So, but for me, the thing going forward, like you mentioned with those wideouts, do any of the freshmen kind of crack in there and get some run? Um, but the Proctor Latham Ransom thing is what I want to watch going forward, just because it became a thing last night.
Yeah, I agree. And again, that's one of the things I hate about being at the game is I didn't hear a TV update or a reason why I wasn't on, and there's no cell service, so I can't be on the game thread or on the board or get any sort of report from anywhere. So yeah, that was interesting. See, like a guy like Jack Sawyer, like I felt that there was an energy on defense last night that I didn't see prior, and I think it comes from guys like Mike Hall, Jack Sawyer, Tommy Eichenberg, guys, those young guys playing more. They've got a little bit of they've got dog to them, as they like to say. They got some dog to them, and sometimes Jack did have a tip pass. So I don't know if that counts as a stat, but he deflected one
I didn't
pass.
see it.
Yeah, he did it on the left tackle. I can still see the play in my head, but sometimes when they run these games, when they run these twists between him and Mike Hall, one of the guy is kind of giving it up for the other guy. So if it was in basketball or hockey, it'd be an assist. You don't score the goal or get the points, but you get the assist. So it's like, and that's like that'd be like an advanced act where it's like, he soaks up two guys and picks the guy, and then Mike Hall flashes in and gets the sack. And I love that because, Mike's just as excited as Jack is because, because then the next time, Mike will set the pick for Jack and then Jack will get the sack. So it's like, I loved watching that. I think that those two are like best friends and feed off each other. And, when they have that chemistry going on one side of the defensive line, like I think that's something to watch going forward because it was really good last night. Nevada, who do you want to see more of going forward? And what are the Proctor thing is easily the biggest question mark from the game to me because Jim Knowles is calling it saying he should be an All-American, he should be the best safety in the country. Then he gets hurt or yanked or whatever after 4 plays, but. Who do you think we need to see more of going forward?
Well, on the Proctor thing, I think the Proctor thing's really pretty straightforward. I think he missed the tackle. Knowles pulled him, replaced him with Ransom. Ransom played well, and they stuck with him. So it's like, it's going to be. I don't think we've heard the last of Josh Proctor, but it's certainly certainly a learning lesson for him about what he has to do and what he has to do better and what he has to kind of clean up because that first big play of the game was 100% on him. So in that regard, I think that's definitely something to look forward to. For me, I'm going to be watching the offensive line, seeing what they're doing with Donovan Jackson, what they're doing with Matt Jones, what they're doing with Enoch, what they're doing with Josh Fryer. How they do because Enoch was playing some big minutes there at the end, and when they were moving the ball down the field pretty good. And I don't know if that was a heavy look. I don't know if they were just if somebody had been dinged and they just wanted to get somebody else in there. Or if they think that they found a new line combination that could be something better for them. So I think that's something to keep an eye on the Ohio State offensive line is kind of his emergence and where he fits into the depth chart going forward.
Yeah, it was interesting with Enoch because he was in for that 15 play, 7 minute, 95-yard drive or whatever it was at the very end. And they punched in with I call it the sumo look because they have Josh Fryer in at tight end and they have 3 tight ends in because they had Cade, Rossi, and Josh Fryer number 41, and Emeka was the wing. And they had Enoch in at guard, which was interesting because he was in at right guard for Matt Jones, but then the following drive, Matt Jones was back in. So I don't know if Matt broke a shoelace or if he got hit or what, but he was back in the next drive. So it was interesting because that was a big drive. And to put Enoch in, who's been standing there ice cold on the sideline the whole game, and all of a sudden you put him in absolute nut cutting time. It wasn't like we were up by 2 scores. We were up by that score put the game away. But Bank, what did you think of that last little bit of the game? Because it was a tight game, and I give a lot of credit to Marcus Freeman because Marcus, I think when he gets some athletes in there, and I think that I don't think it was a loss for Notre Dame, but it didn't really feel like I mean that's a team with a first time quarterback, and it's really his first experience on the big stage. He coached a bowl game that nobody cared about, but he's coaching the biggest game ever at the Horseshoe, all the things. I thought Marcus he had a good night. I think once he gets some athletes there, he's got a chance to actually do some stuff there. But what did you think about kind of towards the end of the game where we were able to just kind of grind it out and get a dirty, nasty victory?
Yeah, I liked it. And I think part of that lays at the feet of the Notre Dame offense. They had like so many 3-and-outs, and they put so much pressure on their defense. And, to Ryan Day's credit, he saw that and he just kept pounding that defense. And that Notre Dame defense was out there all day. And eventually they wore out. They were great in the first half and into the second half. And then, man, you could see when you're out there all night like that and your offense 3-and-out, 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 Ryan Day sensed it, and he went with Mayan Williams a lot to have just a little bit more power than Trey Henderson, and I liked it. I liked the way it was just straightforward. They're coming right at him, and, if you can stop us, fine, but I don't think you can. And they were done. By the end of the game, Notre Dame, that defensive front, that front seven had nothing left. So, but to get to Marcus Freeman, I thought his team was ready to play. They're not as good as Ohio State, and he knows that. Everybody knows that. I mean, for Notre Dame to be ranked as like number 5 in the country is ridiculous. That team's not number 5 in the SEC. So that number 5 ranking is ridiculous. But he had his team, they were ready to play. They had the lead into the second half. I mean, they didn't get killed like they have so many times under Brian Kelly. I think their record in the last 11 times on the road against top 5 teams, they were 0-11, and those losses were by, I think, 18 points apiece. So there's a history there of getting murdered in those kind of games. The score, you lose by 11, but that was, they played Ohio State. They didn't lay down at all. Marcus had them ready to go. He just doesn't have enough dudes, like you said.
Yeah, I think that the skill and something that's questionable with Ohio State going forward is I know that we just wax poetic about how deep and strong our wide receiver room is, but I don't know. I mean, we lose Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I'm sure he'll be back potentially this week unless they hold him for Toledo. But I don't know if we had a guy that like could take it deep like Chris Olave could, or even Garrett Wilson. I mean, that's a 4.27 guy and a 4.38 guy. I mean. I was surprised we didn't take more shots and connect on more shots because that was like our calling card last year is we just ran past guys, and that was something that I thought that we could get behind their secondary, but I guess Ryan thought differently and we didn't really attempt it because I mean I just remember last year it was like bombs away against like Michigan State and some of those teams we were throwing it deep and did that surprise you, Bank, that we didn't take more shots with a kid like Jaden, because I figured Jaden's the guy that, Chris Olave says he's the fastest guy on the team, and Chris ran a 4.27. So, I mean, I'm surprised we didn't at least try it once with Jaden.
Yeah, I know Notre Dame had the 2 safeties deep, and that makes it kind of tough. But, those corners were really good for Notre Dame, and that was kind of a question mark of theirs coming into the game. They weren't real happy with their corners, and I thought those guys played great. You know what I mean? I think CJ completed 22 passes for like 230 yards or something, and that's not usually he completes 22. It's 405, so, and there were no deep shots and there just weren't guys open. I mean, even the ones that completed, man, those were contested. So, I think to get back to Marcus Freeman, I think he's got to be happy about his defense. His D line wore out in the end, but that's on the offense. It's not on those guys. So, like I said, it was a strange game. It really was a strange game. Not what I expected from Ohio State offensively at all. But to their credit, they adjusted and they won. And that's the thing on week 1, man. You got to win.
Yeah. Yeah. Nevada, some closing thoughts from you on week 1, the performance. Obviously, the victory is huge going forward. But just what are your final thoughts on the performance last night?
Well, just I've said this many times, but just that coaching matters in college football. Coaching almost is determinative of success, and we saw that on display yesterday with Knowles and what he did. And I thought, Ohio State had a big, advantage, Dave versus Freeman. And as Banks said, I thought Marcus did a very, very credible job in terms of getting those guys ready. They were not overwhelmed by the moment. They didn't get blown out. But, Ohio State came out with a, 11-point victory against a top 5 opponent, and those are never bad. And we'll be better. But, I'm sure glad that we have Jim Knowles calling our defense. I'm not ready to, put a monument to Jim on the campus just yet, but I think that might have been as big a hire as Tom Herman was for Urban Meyer or Ryan Day was for Urban Meyer. I think this is a key hire, and I think it's going to pay huge dividends for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I totally agree on the Tom Herman hire. It was funny when you saw the transformation from the 2011 offense that I was a GA for to the 2012 offense where, we couldn't throw the ball at all in 11, and all of a sudden we were actually pretty good, went undefeated in 12. Bank, what are your final thoughts? We wrap up the week. Obviously, I don't think they are not where they need to be, to be ready for Georgia or Bama, who looked Georgia looked fantastic, but they don't have to be. They don't play them yet, but they got to get ready for those big dogs, man. Eric Armstead, some of those, that big tight end or Eric, whatever his name, Gilbert. Whatever. He was unbelievable. What are your final thoughts after week 1?
Yeah, you just, you look back at the job the O-line did, and I think you got to look at that Justin Fry trade for Greg Studrawa, and I think it looks good right now. Like I say, that line was physical, and they said that they were tired of hearing that they were soft, but in 2021, they were soft. They were Charmin soft. They weren't soft last night, you know what I mean? And they played a team that is very physical. Notre Dame doesn't have a lot of speed. They don't have a lot of skill, but man, they're tough as nails. So what I really like the most is the fact that I think last year Ohio State was really a Big 12 kind of team. To win a big game, they had to throw the ball over people's heads, and that was really their path to win last year. Now, last night, that game was played at Notre Dame's pace. Ohio State wants a track meet. Notre Dame wants a fist fight. Well, last night was a fist fight, and Ohio State won that fist fight by 11 points. So I think it bodes well for Ohio State that they can win different styles, win different ways. That's what a championship team has to do. Nick Saban has won titles every possible way imaginable, and that's what great teams have to do. You can't just have one way to win. And last year, Ohio State was a Big 12 team, and Big 12 teams don't really do well in the playoffs. And Ohio State would not have done well in the playoffs last year. But I think this team is more set to be a playoff team.
Yeah, I agree. And I think with the expansion of the playoffs and potentially having to play, if they do have a home playoff game and it's in bad, cold weather, you have to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to stop the run and run the ball because you're going to play in a blizzard. You're going to play in rain. And, the throw game is a lot harder to operate when it's raining sideways or, if it's snowing and cold. It's you have to be able to run the ball in the bad weather games. And I think that is kind of the trajectory we're on. Well, with that being said, gentlemen, I'm going to wrap this thing up. I appreciate you guys. As always, we are going to head onto the message board. The message board is on fire right now. We have the Inconvenient Truce of Nevadabuck. We have Bill Greene's recap. We have a ton of content coming. We appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much, Scoop family. If you enjoyed this episode, comment. Who do you think was the MVP last night? Was it Tommy? I thought Steel Chambers showed out a little bit. I thought Jack Sawyer played great. I thought Kate Stover played great. I rewatched the game a few times. It's just good to kind of get fresh eyes on it. But I want to know who you think the MVP was. If you guys are looking for the best inside information in the game, BuckeyeScoop.com is your place. Give us a try. You might just love it. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.